God, we pause in the midst of the busyness of life and work and government to recognize the ways in which you show up in our life. We pause to take a breath and recognize the fragility of life and the weight of our decisions regarding public matters. We pause and we think of those who suffer, who are oppressed or hurt by violence and war, and in all that we could be, let us be peacemakers and violence disruptors. And so we pause to ask that you might guide and inspire our city leaders and those everywhere who lead. Give them courage to do what's right in the face of opposition. Give them support when facing discouragement or struggle. Give them wisdom when facing difficult decisions and complicated issues. And above all, pour out your grace so that in knowing we are loved, we might lead our communities to love one another. And help turn our prayers into action, that we might usher in justice and peace, and help us to catch a vision for our city and the world that is equitable for all. Amen.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Aucauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White, President Hardin. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of City Council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21. Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Aucauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White, President Hardin. Not at this time.
We'll go around the dais for announcements and resolutions. Councilmember Barosa de Padilla. Councilmember de Aucauer.
Thank you, President Hardin. Tonight, I am honored to sponsor Resolution 0110X-2024 to recognize the leadership and service of Carla Williams Scott, the first director of the City of Columbus's Department of Neighborhoods. It's a bittersweet time in the city as the Department of Neighborhoods will soon be saying goodbye to an instrumental leader in Carla Williams Scott. Director Williams Scott was appointed the first director of the newly created department in 2016. Under the leadership of Director William Scott, the department has achieved some incredible milestones, including but not limited to renovating and moving into a new office in the heart of Linden, overseeing increases in budget, personnel, and the expansion of area commissions to meet the needs of our growing city, ensuring that necessities were continuously provided to the community through the COVID-19 pandemic, and completing 2 collaborative community plans for Linden and Hilltop, with a third on its way for Eastland. I was fortunate to have collaborated with Director William Scott for years before I joined council, particularly on Envision Hilltop, where she was instrumental in the formulation and beginning implementation of a community plan that continues to guide development and revitalization in the historically underinvested Hilltop neighborhood. I saw firsthand the department's intentional work on this plan, as well as the One Linden plan, to ensure residents were heard and that this truly was a community-led initiative. Even though our time together on the official side of things was short, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you and your department. The impact the department has on every resident today is a direct result of your caring leadership. I'd now like to turn the floor over to Deputy Director Todd Diffendorfer to speak more on the director's tenure.
Council President, members of council, thank you for this opportunity. A few members of the team just came down tonight to join us in recognizing the director. But Director and council members, it takes a great deal to take a concept and turn it into reality. And you did that heavy lifting to make the Department of Neighborhoods what it is today. There are many, many accomplishments from your 8 years with community plans, 3-in-1, the New American Program, Community Relations Commission, MBK, just to name a few. Your commitment to equity and ensuring that everyone can contribute to their neighborhood and the success of their community has driven all of us to enhance the work that we do and grow the work in the ways that will be the most impactful. So on behalf of the staff, we are certainly going to miss your guidance, your insight, and your ability to get to the heart of a community issue so quickly. And I was thinking, members of council, that I was going to ask you to vote no on the resolution tonight, so we'd be a little bit more time with her. but I don't want to stand in the way of progress and the good things to come for the director. So also want to invite you to, we have an open house Thursday, 1 to 3 at our offices at 1410 Cleveland Avenue. So please join us. Director, thank you.
Thank- We'll give the director a moment to collect herself there as I turn to my colleagues to see if they have any comments.
Boss lady, because that's what I still call her. But let me say to you, congratulations. And we've seen many folks come before us for retirement, and we say a similar thing, but this statement in regards to you and your body of work, not just here in Department of Neighborhoods, but for this city and this community, is truly the definition of public service. For a little history lesson for many folks, Carla Williams Scott took me by the collar when I was 21 years old, and we sat back there on that bench back there, and I see Miss Trudy Bartley, who was also one of those folks that did the same thing, and said, I want you to come sit with me at a council meeting. And it was that moment that where she was like, I'm going to tell you how you're going to do this, and this is how we're going to get it done. Because she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I think anybody who works for her, I see many colleagues that I worked with in the Department of Neighborhoods, that's what you do. And it was in that moment that you showed me what true public service was really all about. Not simply what we say, but how we follow through, how we live up to what it is that our mission and our calling is. And so I know that this probably will not be your last stop, but someone who's literally dedicated their entire career to public service. And I'm proud to say that I do the same, but I stand on the shoulders of people like you and the work that we have done together. You let this young kid be able to go out and engage with community. When we were doing the One Linden Plan, or whether it be the Hilltop Plan, I now say that I got my honorary degree in city regional planning, so I see Patrice there. I hope that's okay for me to say that. But that was only because of, I think, your leadership that allowed me to make mistakes, that allowed me to grow, that allowed me and to prepare me for the seat that I sit in today. And I can say that that is because of you and your leadership, your friendship, your mentorship, and your guidance throughout the years. And so as you may be moving on to a next here within the city and anywhere else, know that I will always continue to lean on you for your advice and your support. And I truly appreciate it. And this city is better off because of your leadership. So thank you and congratulations.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Melissa? Okay.
Just want to go around. So Director Williams Scott and I already had a little bit of a private moment, but I would be remiss if we did not share a public moment. If neighborhoods are at the heart of the city, then you are at the heart of neighborhoods. And when I think about our residents, from area commissioners to 311 to however they engage with the department, they are engaging with you. And it is that intentionality that you have with your people. It's the intentionality that you have with our residents about how do you make things better? How do you solve problems? How do you really see people for who they are? How do you see their humanity? And how do you bring ease to some of that? I mean, the many stories that we've shared as I was sharing neighborhoods and the work that we were able to do together, and the support also. I mean, Councilmember Bankston said this as youngerish council member, but coming in to this space, just having another woman and having another woman of color be in spaces where you had to create a space for yourself, and giving me the room to do that and the room to lead and a platform to lead, and being a true partner in that, and supporting not just my leadership, but the leadership of so many other women who have gone through, and so many other leaders that always don't have the opportunity to have a platform through NALA and through other programs that you have, even through area commissions that you have put into place. That is your legacy. And I think that's the part of public service, is that we pour a lot into the work that we do, but being able to see the seeds that come out of it, what grows because of the things that you planted. And this department is a testament to that, but certainly all of the many, many lives that you have touched because of the service that you have given to this city that we all love. So thank you so much. And you can never get rid of us. You can take the girl out of the city, but you can't take the city out of the girl. So thank you. Thank you for being a partner, and thank you for being a friend.
Well, Director, it's well-deserved honor here, and I just want to say thank you for being so incredibly generous with your time. When I first joined council, I had the opportunity to chair the committee that oversaw your department, and as someone who was barely trying to figure out where the bathrooms were in this building, you were incredibly generous with your time, educating me about how things work here in City Hall, how things work across the community. So many of those lessons that you and I talked about have stuck with me during my service on council, and I would not have the opportunity to do a lot of the things across the city without so much of the guidance and advice you gave me during those formative months and years during my time on council. And watching you build something is an incredibly rare thing for anyone to be able to, creation of a new department. And then when I think about that generosity you shared with me, that's the generosity that you've shared with the city, because so oftentimes there's a new thing the city wants to tackle and we're not quite sure where it's supposed to fit. And we say, well, I think Carla can figure that out over in the Department of Neighborhoods. And every single time you've stepped up to the plate, and your folks that you work with, you've got them to step up to the plate. And that's a rare thing, to be able to have a leader who's able to do that, and create a team that's really ready to be supportive of being able to step up to that plate and be generous with their time when sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. And I just want to say thank you personally for taking the time to be generous with me, particularly back when I got started, and for all of the years that you put in to create something that is incredibly impactful for our residents here in Columbus. So thanks again.
Oh, Director. So you probably don't even remember this, but the first time you and I met was when I was a young attorney, and we had come together at the Department of Neighborhoods to talk about homelessness and housing, I believe on the Near East Side, if my memory serves correct. And I knew from that very first encounter, this woman is not to be played with, and you better bring your A game. It was given strong auntie vibes. And I say that with the utmost respect, right? Because I knew that even as a young attorney, that it was incredibly important for me to always be over-prepared. Anytime I had the opportunity to engage with someone that was part of the administration, not knowing that any of this would ever come to fruition. And since I've been a member of council, you have continued to affirm me as a Black woman in this space, that there have been moments when I have had to stand alone, and you saw what I needed to hear in that very moment so that I could continue to move on in strength, to persevere. And I believe that that is also the essence of the Department of Neighborhoods, because you all are boots on the ground. You all are hearing it and feeling it before it even hits us most of the times. Yet and still you continue to persevere and do this work with strength on behalf of every single resident in the city of Columbus. And so I am so grateful that our paths had the opportunity to cross. You have been a phenomenal woman, a phenomenal public servant to the city of Columbus. And we are forever grateful for your commitment. You shed tears today because you bring your whole self to this job. You have always brought your whole self to this job. And so thank you for your level of commitment and for your level of service and dedication to this community.
Okay. I'm a crier, everyone, just so you know. Man, Director, you didn't chase me down for a job like Nick. I feel like I chased you down for a job. I knew from the very first time that I met you, similar to Councilmember Favor here, how important the work was that you were doing. And how much of an impact you have had, and how much I wanted to learn from you. And since you gave me that opportunity, I would not be here today. Many of us wouldn't be here today on this stage were it not for you. And the way that you invested in us time and time again. And I've always felt like the sign of a true leader is a person that more often than not will stand behind you and prop you up and push you forward, will stand next to you to hold your hand and walk along your journey with you. But when times get tough, a leader will get in front and they will push back for you. They will take the hits for you. And as a director working under your leadership, I always knew that first and foremost, you were there to help prop us up, all of us, and this city up. But you weren't afraid to be a leader when times got tough, and to get in front. And so that has meant everything to me. It really has. I'm thankful for your love and your guidance and your leadership that you have sown into all of us. I carry it with me in everything I do. And I am excited to continue to work with you because I know you're not going far. So thank you for everything.
Director, thank you so much. Thank you for all your contributions to our city. Obviously, neighborhoods is the essence of what we do up here on a day in and day out basis and what the city does. And so done a lot of things over the last 7 years or so. Well, no, it's been 9 years, basically. I don't know, since you've been in the director role, but, certainly moving to the point of pride and getting that accomplished, an overhaul of 311 and all the things that you've done to make this city a better place. We thank you, and I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Councilmember Deacar, I'm confused. I'm pretty sure the director promised us at least 2 to 3 more years working in the department. And as a newbie, I struggle because I hear all these amazing things, and we've only had a short period of time together. However, it is evident through all of your staff who touch all of our neighborhoods, the leadership and vision that you have imparted on them. They are the amazing ambassadors for the city, and that only is through your leadership that they are there. So I appreciate all that you've done. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you. I do feel bad for missing our last briefing, though, because, we could have had a more private moment then. But I appreciate you being here and all that you've done for the city. So thank you.
If there was one sentiment that I heard was strong auntie vibes, and I certainly share those. Carla, just like Nick and many others, you have been that to me since I was a child. So my hope and my prayer for you is that on today, that you feel, one, proud of what you have been able to accomplish, that you feel appreciated for the work that you have done, that you feel excited for what's next. And so on behalf of a grateful community, we say thank you. Thank you for being a first. And for laying the foundation for a strong department to do amazing work in building neighborhoods. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Director. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I won't talk long because I always tell my colleagues in the back that whoever's up there talking, they shouldn't talk long. And they know I do, right? But really just want to say thank you. It has been an honor to serve. I'm looking, I've got 1, 2, 3 former staff in the clerk's office that were former staffs of mine, 2 sitting council members that were staff in the Department of Neighborhoods. So I think that's just a testament to the work that we do and how we support the residents here in Columbus. So thank you for allowing me to serve.
Thank you, Director. Well, don't go away just yet. Director, the city is, you're trying to run out the door. The city is truly going to miss you and wish you all the best on your future endeavors. So seeing no further comments from my colleagues, I move for adoption.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you, Council President. That's all for me.
And I just have
Thank
to say,
you,
I couldn't do this without my amazing team. As you guys can see, they are pretty awesome. So thank you.
That's why we keep stealing them. Pres Pro Tem. Councilmember Favor.
Thank you, Council President Arden. I have one resolution this evening, and I'd like to invite Arch's Director, Wendy Tarr, to the podium as I provide recognition as April 14th through April 20th as Reentry Week within the City of Columbus and recognize Arch for their reentry services. Each year, over 600,000 individuals return to their communities from state and federal prisons. The challenges facing formerly incarcerated people during their transition back into society are far-reaching, including finding and maintaining employment, locating safe and affordable housing, obtaining reliable transportation, reuniting with family, accessing healthcare and mental health services, and dealing with the trauma of reentry. ARCH, or Accompanying Returning Citizens with Hope, is a nonprofit organization founded in 2017 with a mission to help returning citizens reintegrate into the community on their terms. ARCH is dedicated to developing leadership among individuals directly impacted by the justice system, emerging as a leader in reentry programs, offering a range of services including reentry planning, wraparound services, vocational training, in solar panel installation, and assistance with social enterprises. I will turn the podium over to you all now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. We appreciate the honor, and during this reentry week, or this end of this month is reentry week, so we just appreciate y'all lifting up this really important issue. Returning citizens, people who've been impacted by the justice system, are our neighbors, they're our family members, they're our friends. And I think what's so important is for us to be able to work together to make a welcoming society. And that's part of what ARCH is doing, but we do that in collaboration with many, many different businesses, landlords, faith communities, yes, and other organizations really coming together to really try to pave the way and to bring resources to individuals as they're coming home so that they can reintegrate successfully and that we can build a safer society and a safer community and safer families. I have my colleagues with me. I'd love for them to share a word or two if they want to. This is Dana Davis, our program director.
Hi, my name's Dana Davis. I'm the program director for ARCH, and I just want to say thank you to Councilmember Favor for this resolution. It just really shows that our work does not go unseen, and it just is really a blessing to be able to do this work and serve the population that we serve and really help to change lives and be a welcoming space for returning citizens. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to introduce Antoinette. Hello, my name's Antoinette Sherrod, and I also like to thank you guys for allowing us to be here this week. Reentry means a lot to us and the work that we do in the community. I will share a little bit. When I first came to Arch, looking them up and, researching the organization, it was very small, but I always say it was so mighty. The work that they're doing is very impactful in the community. It speaks for itself, and I'm just honored to work for this organization and be able to continue to work and do the passion and work that I love to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments by my colleagues? If people want to learn more about Arch, I was incredibly impressed with the amount and the extent and the breadth of the work that you all do in our community to serve citizens who are returning home. How can people learn more about your organization?
Absolutely. So on our website, it describes a number of our programs, and I'll just say a couple things. We're a workforce development partner with Service Relief, helping with Cafe Overlook, a social enterprise, and the courthouse on the 16th floor. And we're doing solar panel installation training inside of 3 prisons with the support of the Department of Labor and EPA. It's really grateful for that. We have some other types of services that we offer. We have transitional housing for women, that's shared housing, and then we have a range of other master leases helping people as they come home. So we're seeking to try always to innovate, and we're just grateful for opportunities that we could have to work with, different members of the City Council as the years moves forward. But our website is archreentry.com. If you go on there, you'll see you can join our email list. We give out tons of information every month about events and pop-up events and things like First Step Friday and conferences that we help coordinate. We really try to help push information out, not only things that we're putting on, but things that other people are putting on, because resources that that need to be made available to individuals who are returning home who without, our organizations helping to bring those forward, they may not know about. So thank you so much, Councilmember Favor, and to all of the members of City Council for the work that you do as well to support returning citizens.
Thank you so much. With that, I move for passage. Oh, my apologies, Councilmember Rosa de Padilla.
I just quickly wanted to just say thank you. It is not, we cannot overstate how important your work is, because it is that hope and knowing that you have something to come home to and knowing that you have access to things, that you can find a place to live, that you can get work, that you know that you're going to come home and be able to have a soft place to land. I mean, that is really the definition of reentry. And so this work is incredibly important in really changing the trajectory of people's lives. And so I just wanted to ensure that we said thank you on behalf of, obviously, all of this council, because this work is just so critical for the folks who are, again, finding their way back home. And it just, again, cannot be overstated. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing it. It is mighty work, because it is people work. So
we're very passionate as well.
Thank you so much, Council Member. And with that, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopted.
We should absolutely clap for reentry, right? Yeah. That's all from me, Council President Harden.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Green. Councilmember Remy. Councilmember White.
Thank you, President Harding. Good evening, everyone. We couldn't close out Earth Month without bringing forth a resolution recognizing April as Native Plant Month. I'd like to invite Michael Keeler, the founder of Ohio Native Concept, LLC Native Landscaping, to accept this resolution and speak of the work he is doing to help the community create climate-conscious, pollinator-friendly yards and landscapes. Ohio is home to almost 2,000 native plant species that are well adapted to Ohio's soil, temperature, precipitation, and environmental conditions, making them the best options for conserving and protecting the environment. They're essential for healthy, diverse, and sustainable ecosystems and are critical for clean air, filtering water, and stabilizing soil. While you're preparing for the summer, I encourage everyone to learn about native plants and avoid planting invasive species. Thanks for being here, Michael. Mike is yours.
Thank you. It's an honor to be asked to be here today. I'll keep it short. I just want to encourage everybody to plant native, remove invasive species. We're facing a pretty serious biodiversity crisis, and the change starts at home. And that's really what I encourage my clients to do. Alter their home landscapes, plant native, remove the invasive species, increase our biodiversity. And the more I do this, the more that I see the community kind of getting together, banding together, and volunteering their time, their money, their energy to improve our public spaces, improve their own property. And it's just really inspiring to continue to see that. And I'm, really excited that the city has decided to recognize this along with the state and the federal government in recognizing April as Native Plant Month. And just, again, just really want to encourage everybody to get out there, plant native, remove those invasive species, and we can really start to work on this biodiversity crisis together. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopted. Thank you, Council Member. Before we move forward with the rest of the council meeting as planned, we wanted to take a moment. We know that we have visitors back at council, and there's been a lot of discussion around the protest and arrest at the Ohio State University on Thursday night. So I wanted to take this time to be clear as I speak on behalf of my body. This council supports the First Amendment and the right to peaceful protest. We said that for months as advocates filled our chambers. We said it in a resolution that we passed last month, and we said it in a statement that we put out on Friday. Since Friday, I've talked to my friend Rep. Munira Abduhali, who was present on Thursday and who was injured. I have been in touch with leaders at the Ohio State University. I've also spoke with our city attorney, Zach Klein, this morning. So I wanted to use the start of this meeting for folks to get answers and more so clarity on what took place and what the city's role has been. So I want to start by asking Public Safety Director Kate Pashadi to explain what took place from the city's perspective, and I will turn it over to her. After the city attorney, Public Safety Director speaks, I'm going to ask Deputy City Attorney Laura Baker Morris to comment. And then we will go out of order. I know that, again, folks have come to seek answers, and we want to make sure that they have that opportunity. And so we will go out of order, and we'll take 3 speakers who have signed up and work with our office to speak before we move forward with council. So with that, I'll turn it over to the director.
Council President Harden, council members, the Department of Public Safety and the Division of Police stay in close communication with our partners in situations like this. In this case, the event on the 25th was confined to OSU campus and was being handled by OSU Police and the State Highway Patrol. To be clear, the Columbus Division of Police did not make any arrests at OSU on April 25th, and we did not deploy any of our helicopters for this incident. We have learned a lot over the past few years and have made extensive reforms and policy changes relevant to the way we do business. CPD operates under city code and the federal court injunction that are specific to Columbus Police when it comes to any protest response. We carefully weigh every request made for assistance against city code, the court injunction, and the mission of the division. Since 2020, the Columbus Division of Police has completely overhauled its response to civil unrest. That includes changes in division policy and city code, which are in alignment with a federal court injunction laying out the legal parameters of how our division is permitted to engage with protesters. Our public order, public safety team, including the dialogue team, is a result of these reforms with a focus of improving police engagement with people exercising their First Amendment rights to speech and peaceful assembly. We've seen the success of this approach multiple times over the last year plus. Utilizing dialogue as a primary focus to build relationships with the community we serve, the division has been able to keep order and peace in tense situations that could have easily turned volatile. And they did this while protecting and enabling the peaceful exercise of First Amendment rights on all sides. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Director. And now I'll turn it over to the Deputy City Attorney's Office. I know that there have been a lot of questions directed towards the office. Director, or Deputy City Attorney.
Now I've got two. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you, Council President Hardin, members of council. Please know that at this time, no decisions have been made regarding these cases. This morning, attorneys for those charged with misdemeanor offenses out of the recent protests on the campus of The Ohio State University requested and were granted a continuance of the arraignment date to June 14th. We anticipate that the same request will be made for the remainder of cases that are set later this week. In the interim, the City Attorney's Office will be conducting a full review of the facts, including the footage of the events. Once we gather all the facts, decisions will be made on how to proceed with each case. This approach is standard practice to ensure a fair resolution of all criminal matters handled by the City Attorney's Office. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. And like I said, we had several folks signed up to speak throughout different portions of tonight's agenda, but we thought it would, to respect their coming down and the events of last Thursday, that we would focus the time right now. So we have three speakers that have signed up: Dalal Shatlash, Cheyenne Persay, and Aaron Ellington, who have signed up to speak. And I think Aaron Ellington signed up to speak first. Welcome to council.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Aaron Ellington. I'm a Christian minister within the city in the Vineyard Movement, Life Vineyard on the Near East Side, 34205. I was arrested Thursday night while addressing a police officer on the sidewalk outside of the protest. I was in the protest in the beginning and separated myself after the line had been broken. Peacefully spoke to police and told them that I pray that they never had to experience the terrors that they brought upon people that day. I witnessed folks of the Muslim faith that I don't even share, pray as police pushed the line, broke the line, and arrested people in the midst of prayer. Though I don't share faith tradition with the Muslim folks, I do see their humanity. I do see that they are also people, and the image of the police, whether Columbus, whether Cleveland, whether state troopers, or whether OSU PD, should be condemned by this council and by any surrounding council. I don't see how you can condone violence against folks who are peacefully praying in a public space. I think Ms. Williams-Scott, because I have seen her in the streets of Columbus. I thank you for your work within the streets of Columbus. And I have not seen any of your faces within the streets of Columbus working alongside of us within the streets. So I hope that's not a condemn. I'm not here to condemn you. I'm not here to condemn you. I'm here to say I hope to see you working alongside us in the streets as well. All right? Peace and love.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker to come before council is Ms. Dalal. Welcome back to council.
Thanks to the officers on April 25th, I'm having a little trouble reading and writing and remembering things. My processing speed is about half. I have a severe concussion. So please bear with me today. You see, when the officer saw me about 4 rows back and pointed me out, about 4 community members stepped in front of me to stop my arrest. That is when they proceeded to pick me up by both my hair and my neck and slam my head into the ground and hold me there before dragging me through the grass of my oval. Not to mention at one point 3 officers picked me up by my ankles and wrists as an officer explained to trainee officers what a 3-man hold was. I'm glad somebody learned something on campus that day because it certainly wasn't the 16 students brutally assaulted emotionally and physically by officers, the same officers that you were unbelievably considering raising the budget for today. When we arrived at the jail, there was 3 hijabi women amongst us, 2 of which their hijabs were forcefully removed, 1 of which her hijab wasn't returned until I made a scene, and all of which were forced to take mugshots without their hijabs. They had 20 women in a holding cell, which meant there was no place to pray. When I asked for something to pray on, once at 3 o'clock and the second time at 5 o'clock, I was refused and instead berated and called disrespectful for an officer for repeating myself. We were refused both halal and kosher meals, which didn't end up being a problem for us, but was for our Jewish comrade who was ironically celebrating Passover. The first day I came in here in October, I said we had been living in a dystopia, and honestly, I think I disagree with myself today. We haven't been living in a dystopia for the last week or even the last 7 months. Instead, we have been living in a stimulation, the Sparks Notes version, if you will, a slight taste of what life is like in Palestine. Which should come as no surprise, honestly, because our cops are trained by the IOF and the Israeli Leadership Academy, regularly visits the Columbus Police Academy. CPD has developed strategies and methodologies that were originally implemented and taught by Israeli right-wing lobby groups, the same groups that are currently perpetuating the massacre of 30,000 people in a little over 200 days. We had 41 people arrested, which is 1/3 of the average daily killed and injured in Gaza. We had women's hijabs being forcefully removed, which is all too reminiscent of the humiliation tactics of the IOF, who regularly strip Palestinian women they arrest for no other reason than to humiliate. I won't be humiliated, nor will I allow them to think that they humiliated. I was likewise strip searched by CPD in complete eye line of male officers. We are having Palestinian students.
The camera is on. Please, Dalal, you continue.
We are having Palestinian students be brutalized emotionally and physically from Gaza to Columbus. I spent 2 days in the ER missing my thesis dissertation and my final exams, and you know what the up thing really is?
Well, if you use language, we will turn it.
As I couldn't care less. Because I know if you're upset at my language and not at the actions of your police force, that's what's No matter how many concussions, no matter how many times CPD tries to intimidate, and no matter what tactics they use to scare and humiliate us, it won't even touch on what the people in Gaza have gone through. You are allowing, and if anything, applauding, by even considering this budget change, by considering this budget, by the brutalization of your community for the agenda of a genocidal governmental body. You have only messed up since October. The least you can do with your community is work with us to drop the charges. Unfortunately, as students, we haven't learned a lot this school year. We have been a little distracted, but we have learned and witnessed and have mastered in so little time is the teachings and we are now teaching the importance of community and the need to protect one's community. As the world turns their heads to students and student activism, maybe you can take a minute to look in our direction and learn a thing or two as well.
Director, to be clear, was CPD involved in the arrests made on Thursday night?
Council President, CPD was not involved in making any arrests on April 25th.
Thank you. Thank you. The last speaker to come before council is Cheyenne Parsi. Parsi. Welcome to council.
Hello, Council. I am here as a rehabilitated man. I feel a lot better. I was a bad boy on Thursday evening. At least that's how I felt. When the police dealt with me, I felt like Hannibal Lecter. But I want to show the timeline of how I was deeply mistaken. I was a bad boy, but now I'm rehabilitated. So to start off, I'd like to say, I think it's actually a great idea to drop the charges. Because me and all of my comrades that were in jail with me, we are rehabilitated. We feel a lot better. We don't want to go back to jail. In fact, after going to jail, I don't want to see anyone go to jail ever again. There's an agenda item. It's 11/39/2024. I don't care about the minutia. To me, it reads like more money to cops. And I'd like to support that agenda item. Let's give more money. I'd like to talk about my stay in the county jail. But before I could get there, I was zip-tied for 6 hours. Now, immediately when it's put on, you can see me on the video grimace. I was in immediate pain. And I looked at the officers in the face and I said, "You got me. Do you mind loosening the zip tie? I'm not going anywhere." He didn't say anything. Let's go backwards a little bit. I'm 160 pounds. Big dude, don't I look like a big dude? It took 5 officers to put me down. When I went down, I had my hand below my stomach, and I was told, "Stop resisting! Put your hands behind your back!" I can't put my hands behind my back. My hands are under my stomach. So what did the female officer do to help me get my hand underneath my stomach, out behind my back? She pulled my pants down. I know, in the moment I thought, that's a violation. But I'm rehabilitated now. She must have thought I needed a colonoscopy. We were taken on a bus. We were put on the bus. I had a comrade on the bus that was in so much pain from the zip tie. He got up and walked to the steel door separating the animals from the humans, being the police officers, the humans, us the animals, in the back of the bus, and said, "Mr. Officer, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm feeling very queasy from the pain of the zip ties. Would you mind please loosening the zip ties? They ignored him. He asked again. They ignored him. He asked again. And they said, we don't have anything to cut the zip ties loose. So he turned back around and started walking back to his seat. Then he passed the out. Shannon, relax. Relax. Relax and bear with me, brother. He passed out and he smashed his head on the floor. I'm sorry, I take that back. He smashed his head on the wall, the steel wall. I thought that man was dead. I got up and I screamed, and I screamed, and I screamed for them to open the door. They opened the door that much and said, that's what you signed up for. I told him, you guys are deputy sheriffs. Can you not give him some medical aid? They shut the door in my face. For 15 minutes, I continued to say, get him a paramedic. It took him 15 minutes. That man lay unconscious on the floor. We couldn't even check his pulse because I'm zip-tied. They opened the door. They said, get up. He's passed out. I know, I'm rehabilitated now. I'm misremembering how it went down. They were nice to, oh, hey, buddy, do you need some water? Why don't we get these zip ties off you? I thought we didn't have anything to get the zip ties off. Can we get the zip ties off? Do we want more bodies on this bus? Shut the door in my face. Then we went inside the Ohio Union. Guess who was there while we were processed? CPD. I know I'm brown, I'm not white, but I was born here. I speak English pretty well. I can read Columbus Police Department. Yeah, they were there. Then they threw me into what I can call, at best, a dog kennel. Me and 9 other men, 4 on my side and 5 on their side, with my hands tied behind my back, with about that much space, in the dark, with no running air in there. It took us about 20 to 30 minutes to get to county jail, and we sat outside of county jail at 2 in the morning till 4 in the morning without being able to breathe. We asked the police officer, can you let us out? We're not going to go anywhere. We'll stand in line. He said, I can't do that. I said, okay, do you mind at least opening the door so we can breathe? We're about to pass out in here. He stopped answering. I wouldn't put my worst enemy in that. God be my witness. I wouldn't put my worst enemy in those circumstances. You dare dehumanize us. You are the ones who are dehumanizing yourselves. I am a man with rights. And those rights were given to me by God Almighty. God Almighty. And He will sit in President Hardin's chair. And you will stand there. And I will stand here. And I will bear witness one more time. And God save you on that day.
Just to be clear, and I think that Mr. Parsay said this, that was not a city jail, those, Director, were folks processed in the city jail today?
Council President, the city doesn't maintain a jail, it's a county.
It's a county jail.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Obviously, this is the people's house where folks come to have these type of conversations. This is actually not the body that would determine who gets prosecuted or who doesn't. I expect. We are listening. We have been listening. All right, we're going to take a recess so that we can move forward with council. Is there a motion to recess? Is there a motion to recess? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
We are in recess. Call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There are no requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent action portion of the agenda. May we now have a motion to waive reading of titles of 30-day legislation? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda?
Finance and Governance Committee ordinances 1018, 1107, 1173-2024. Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee ordinances 1083, 1104, 1183-2024. Public Service and Transportation Committee ordinances 979 and 1119-2024. Neighborhoods, Recreation and Parks Committee ordinances 660, 1039, 1040, 1043, 1224-2024. Workforce, Education and Labor Committee ordinances 976, 977, 1067, 1162, 1166-24. Housing, Homelessness and Building Committee ordinances 904, 1011, 1079, 1084, 1143, 1144, 1145-2024. Health, Human Services and Equity Committee ordinances 1106 and 1223-2024. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee ordinances 1048, 1063-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee ordinances 955, 980, 997, 1013, 1046-2024. Zoning Committee ordinances 1112, 1113, and 1133-2024.
Our agenda as consent action. Will the clerk now read those into the record?
Resolutions of Expression 109X, 112X, 115X, 104, 105, and 106X-2024. Finance and Governance Committee ordinances 222, 974, 1062, 1076, 1082-2024. Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee ordinance 1053-2024. Public Service and Transportation Committee ordinances 925, 998, 1087, 1115, 1117, 1129-2024. Neighborhoods, Recreation and Parks Committee ordinances 1032, 1044, 1058-2024. Workforce, Education and Labor Committee ordinance 1037-2024. Housing, Homelessness and Building Committee ordinance 1000-2024. Health, Human Services and Equity Committee ordinances 731, 832, 842, 850, 899, 935, 1064-2024. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee ordinances 942, 983, 1074, 1098-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee ordinances 811, 841, 855, 856, 978-2024. Rules and Policy Committee, we have appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A099, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, and 110-2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any questions or comments on the consent portion of the agenda? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve these items? Designated consent? Is there a second? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bangston.
Yes, with the exception of ordinance 1074-2024, from which I'm abstaining.
Ms. Barosa de Padilla? Ms. De Alcauer? Mr. Dorans? Ms. Favor?
Yes, with the exception of ordinances 832-2024, 942, and 1074-2024, from which I'm abstaining.
Ms. Green? Mr. Remy? Mr. White? President Harden?
Yes. The consent portion of our agenda passed with the noted exceptions. We'll now proceed with the second reading and 30-day postponed and emergency legislation. The first committee to come before council is the Finance and Governance Committee, chaired by Councilmember Bankston. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight in Finance and Governance Committee for second reading, we have ordinance 0211-2024 to authorize the Finance and Management Director on behalf of the Fleet Management Division to establish purchase orders from previously established universal term contracts for the purchase of vehicles for use by various city agencies and departments, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to establish purchase orders for State of Ohio cooperative contracts for related vehicle upfitting, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to establish purchase orders for additional vehicle acquisition or vehicle upfitting needs in accordance with the competitive bidding provisions of Columbus City Code, to authorize the appropriation of $9,750,000 from the general fund, to authorize the expenditure of $9,750,000 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes the acquisition of vehicles and related upfitting for the use of citywide departments and agencies. Each year, the Fleet Management Division assesses vehicle acquisition needs for the city, which is an ongoing process of collaboration with departments. This ordinance allocates $9.75 million towards citywide vehicle acquisition, which is a 35% increase since 2021. I definitely want to commend Director Owens and her leadership on this. As our city continues to grow, so do the needs of our fleet. And so I want to thank her for continuing to beat the drum for our departments and make sure that they have vehicles to keep up with our growing city as we continue to try to provide the best service to our residents. All vehicles will be procured through the use of existing universal term contracts and competitively bid contracts. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans, Favor, Green, Remy, White. President Harden?
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. May I move to the Economic Development and Small Minority Business Committee?
Please.
Thank you. Tonight in the Economic Development and Small Minority Business Committee, we have ordinance 1184-2024 to approve an application of the mayor for the creation of a designated outdoor refreshment area to be known as the Center City DORA, to designate the boundaries of the Center City DORA, to adopt a safety plan for the Center City DORA, to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into a memorandum of understanding or other agreements with Cinti Center DORA LTD, to provide for the operations and maintenance of the designated outdoor refreshment area, and to declare an emergency. As mentioned in the title, this ordinance approves the administration's application and plan for the establishment of a designated outdoor refreshment area in the downtown area, more commonly referred to as a DORA. DORAs, for those who are not familiar, are defined areas where adults 21 plus can walk around with one alcoholic beverage in a designated cup served by participating bars or restaurants. Since being established by the state in 2015, DORAs have been used by municipalities across the state to increase pedestrian activity, local commercial activity, enhance outdoor dining, and activate areas that have walkability and green space but lack attractions. While many of our suburban neighbors have established DORAs, there is only one currently in the city of Columbus, that is the Arena District, which is limited to days when events are taking place at one of the three sporting venues. This new DORA, which has been named the Center City DORA, will span from East Franklinton to 4th Street in downtown Columbus, will operate daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and will jointly be managed by the Franklinton Special Improvements District, the Capitol Crossroads Special Improvements District, Franklinton Board of Trade, and Downtown Columbus, Inc. via a newly established LLC. And I definitely want to, again, thank the leadership of Amy and her team at the Downtown Columbus Inc., as well as Trent Smith and our friends at the Franklinton Board of Trade in Franklinton for working tirelessly to get feedback from neighbors. Also want to thank my vice chair, Councilmember Rosa De Padilla, as well as Councilmember White, who were at a public hearing that we had in Franklinton to talk about this. And so, again, really excited about what has transpired in the community engagement that has went into this, and definitely want to thank those partners. A hearing on this topic, again, was held on April 10th, and tonight's vote will mark the final step in establishing this DORA prior to the state's final approval. So after we pass this evening, it will go to the state for final approval before it goes into effect in downtown Columbus. Residents who are interested in learning more can visit downtowncolumbus.com/DORA, D-O-R-A, or by typing Center City DORA into their preferred online search engine. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'll move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have in my committee this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next committee to come before council is the Public Service and Transportation Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Barosa de Padilla. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. I have one ordinance today in Public Service and Transportation, 0795-2024, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to establish purchase orders and contract with multiple vendors for the purchase of various traffic management and control commodities for the Department of Public Service, to authorize the expenditure of up to $1,900,000 from the street construction maintenance and repair fund for the purchase of various traffic management and control commodities, to authorize the expenditure of up to $300,000 from the municipal motor vehicle tax fund for the purchase of various traffic management and control commodities, and to declare an emergency. The Department of Public Service utilizes pavement marking materials, sign manufacturing materials, school flashing beacons, traffic signal commodities, and a variety of traffic management and control commodities. The purchase of these supplies and materials are necessary to ensure traffic safety throughout the city of Columbus. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. That's all for me this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, chaired by Councilmember de Alcauer. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. Tonight in my committee, we have Ordinance 952-2024 to authorize the Director of Department of Neighborhoods to enter into a grant agreement with the Willie and Vivian Gaddis Foundation in support of the Jumpstart College Tour, to authorize expenditure within the general fund and to declare an emergency of $24,900. The Willie and Vivian Gaddis Foundation has been a publicly supported nonprofit organization established to empower children and youth by promoting and providing educational and artistic opportunities for those at risk. The foundation has provided 85 college visits to date, impacting over 800 youth. This year, the foundation is planning an HBCU-specific tour, and I'm going to toss it over to our Deputy Director to talk more about this year's grant and why it's so important.
Council President, members of council, thank you. We really appreciate the partnership with City Council to expand the amount of money that we can provide in this grant. I believe we'll be able to send 26 young people on a tour. It's going to start in June for a week. Going to hit a number of schools in Atlanta and in Alabama, HBCUs, as well as historic sites in those areas. This work really is an important part. It's linked with our My Brother's Keeper work and really helping to make sure young people have a good sense of post-secondary opportunities that they can take advantage of. So again, appreciate the partnership.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, we have Ordinance 1025-2024 to authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into an LPA federal local project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the Olentangy Trail, Northmore to Clinton Como project and accept a grant in the amount of $5,417,132 to authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into contract with Complete General Construction Company for the Olentangy Trail, Northmore to Clinton Como project, to authorize a transfer of $4,369,137.81 between the General Fund Income Tax Set-Aside Subfund and the Recreation Parks Bond Fund to authorize the appropriation of $5,417,132 in the Recreation and Parks Grant Fund to authorize the appropriation of $4,369,137.81 in the Income Tax Set-Aside Subfund in Recreation and Parks Voted Bond Fund to authorize expenditure of $10,366,269.89 from the Recreation and Parks Grant Fund and Voted Bond Fund and to declare an emergency. Having received nearly $5.5 million in grant funding and contributing a local match of about $4.3 million in funding, the department is now ready to enter into a construction contract to begin work on this trail project. The 16-mile-long Olentangy Trail is Central Ohio's most heavily used greenway trail. However, the final 0.6-mile stretch between Northmore Park and Clinton Como Park was never completed, leaving trailgoers to have to utilize a confusing, congested, narrow, and unsafe street route. This project will construct a crossing at the Olentangy River at Northmore Park, traveling on the west bank of the river. At North Broadway Street, the trail will use an enhanced bike and pedestrian crosswalk and signal. The trail will then travel along the river behind the Ohio Health Campus. The trail will then continue south, strategically using boardwalks in environmentally sensitive areas, and cross the river to Clinton Como Park, where it rejoins the existing trail. Construction is anticipated to start in the spring of 2024 and will be complete by the fall of 2025. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage as amended.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, President Harden. That's all I have in my committee this week.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee to come before the council is Workforce, Education, and Labor, chaired by President Pro Tem. President Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. First, we have Ordinance 1054-2024 to authorize the city clerk to enter a grant agreement with Somali Community Link Incorporated in the support of their after-school program to authorize an appropriation of expenditure within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund. My colleague, Councilmember Dayakauer, is the legislation sponsor, and I'm going to pass over to her to speak more to it. Councilmember?
Thank you, Chair Dorans. As I give some background, I would like to invite the team from the Somali Community Link organization up to the podium. Somali Community Link is a nonprofit organization working to improve the lives of Somali refugees and immigrants through advocacy, education, employment, and housing needs in Central Ohio. In my years of service to the West Side, I've heard from our Somali residents about the tremendous burden American Somali youth carry between having to translate for their parents and learning to navigate American school culture while respecting their home culture. These kids have less and less time to focus on academics their parents are not always able to assist with because of language barriers. Additionally, our schools rarely have the resources to meet Somali youth where they are, instead putting them in large ESL classrooms where they are not always able to receive one-on-one attention. Additionally, in this community, as well as others, there's oftentimes a gap in programming that does not factor in middle school-aged children. Somali Community Link provides a free after-school program that allows Somali youth to receive individual academic tutoring and mentoring from fellow first-generation Somali Americans. I was proud to earmark funding in this year's operating budget to help expand this program, as I recognize the need for this sort of programming in the community and how impactful it is. So here to talk more about the program and how this funding will support it is Leonard Hubert, who is a consultant for Somali Community Link. Leonard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilmember. Council President Harden and members of council, let me do a couple of things, if I may. I will be brief. But first of all, I want to thank each of you as members of council for your dedication and your work as public servants. It's not an easy job, and have been involved for over 3 decades in government work. I know the importance of work that you do, and so thank you for your service to the community. I did want to briefly mention that I would ask that you rescind your ordinance recognizing Director Carla Williams Scott. But she left, and so I would just leave that alone. But I would do say that in sentiment, as each of you have said, a true public servant for the city of Columbus, and certainly we will miss her for her work. My colleague, D. Addy, who was with me early, got an emergency phone call. His daughter was involved in a bike accident, and so he rushed out of here and went over to Nationwide Children's Hospital. So I'm doing my job and his job, but we'll do it very brief. But most of you, as you know, Columbus is home to the second largest Somali population in the United States behind Minneapolis. The program that Councilmember Nancy spoke about that we're talking about tonight is a very critical component of the mission of the Somali Community Link Organization, and that is to improve the lives of Somali refugees and immigrants in advocacy, education, employment, and housing needs of Central Ohio. These dollars certainly will continually allow the Somali Community Organization to build and strive the Somali community in its growing efforts in Central Ohio. The after-school program, while it's at current program operating capacity, we're pleased to announce that starting in June, we will be utilizing a new location capable of accommodating up to 300 additional students. And our programs consist of a team of 3 dedicated teachers, 6 volunteers from The Ohio State University who diligently assist our students with their homework, catering to middle school and through high school immigrant students. And we currently serve a total of 130 students in the program. So thank you very much for your support. I will say that your money will be well spent for good use.
Thank you, Leonard, and I look forward to seeing the continued and additional impact this program has on our Somali residents. Chair Dorans, I turn it back over to you for passage.
Thank you, council member. Any other questions or comments from council members? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next in this committee, we have ordinance 1139-2024 to approve the proposed collective bargaining agreement in its entirety as executed by representatives of the City of Columbus and the Fraternal Order of Police, Capital City Lodge 9, dated December 9th, 2023 through December 8th, 2026, to provide for wages, hours, and other terms and conditions of employment for members in the bargain unit and declare an emergency. First, I want to ask Director Chris Moses from Department of Human Resources to go over how collective bargaining works here in Ohio as it relates to the city here generally, and how this relates to how the legislation comes before this body this evening. Director Moses, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Dorans, Council President Harden, members of council. Briefly, the overview of the collective bargaining process. Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 4117, is the collective bargaining law governing public employers and public employee union groups in the state of Ohio. As a public employer, the city is subject to the state collective bargaining law and is required to negotiate wages, including leave and benefits, hours, and other terms and conditions of employment with its employee union groups, such as the FOP. The city began negotiations with the FOP in September 2023 and met 26 times. The city and the FOP reached a signed tentative agreement on March 28th, and the FOP membership voted and ratified the agreement on April 4th. This ratified tentative agreement is before City Council tonight, and I'll talk about what happens next. If a majority votes to pass Ordinance 1139-2024, the tentative agreement would become our contract. If Council were to reject the tentative agreement, the parties would go to fact-finding, which is a settlement procedure for resolving collective bargaining disputes. This process is set forth in Chapter 4117 of the Ohio Revised Code. Fact-finding is a process where the parties select an independent neutral, known as a fact-finder, from a list provided by the State Employment Relations Board, to hear testimony and gather evidence from the parties justifying their proposals. The fact-finder then makes findings of fact and issues recommendations for the resolution of the matter in a fact-finding report. The fact-finder can fashion the report and recommendation in any manner they see fit. There is no obligation to take either party's position. To reject the fact-finding report, it takes 3/5 vote of the body, whereas passing the agreement requires a simple majority. If neither side rejects the report, the outstanding issues are resolved and incorporated into the agreement. If rejected, the issues in dispute would go to conciliation. The FOP, like the Columbus Firefighters Union, is a non-strike union, meaning they cannot legally strike like other civilian city employee unions at this point in the process. Like fact-finding, in conciliation, the parties submit unresolved issues to a neutral, dubbed a conciliator. The parties submit their issues in a final offer settlement hearing where the conciliator takes evidence and hears testimony from the parties. Unlike fact-finding, the conciliator is bound to one position or the other. A conciliator's findings of fact and written opinion are final and binding upon the parties and become the agreement. Either party, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Director. So to break some of that presentation down, again, I appreciate you sort of diving into the legal mechanics behind this. I think sometimes when we have labor contracts come before this body, there's some confusion about who sits at the negotiating table, what is council actually voting on, and sort of what is the process that led us here today, and what would be the process if council rejected the agreement that's before us. So can you just clarify, so what branch of city government sits down at the negotiating table with any of our labor contracts here in the city?
It is the executive branch. We report to the mayor's office. It is representatives from the Department of Human Resources, Department of Public Safety. The city attorney is also engaged, and members of the Department of Finance for the city team.
And because this is we have now went to fact finding here. This is a contract that was negotiated at the bargaining table. We as council don't have the ability to pull out that agreement with a red pen and say, we like this, circle it. We don't like this, let's get rid of that. Basically, when you sit down at the negotiating table and bring this legislation to us, council does not have the ability to strike within that agreement, correct?
That's correct. As I understand it, there's no veto power or line item veto power with council.
Thank you. And going further, so again, when we talk about, again, the process itself, so the legal mechanics of the Ohio Revised Code, so state law places on every city across the state of Ohio that has a labor contract with their employees. So you talk about there's fact-finding, there's mediation, and then going into that conciliation process, which is unique for safety services, right? So that only covers bargaining units that are related to safety, so police and fire. So when we talk about one of the reasons why the city would want to bring an agreement to council that would not go to that length, essentially, through that process, what is one of the main reasons why the city is invested in trying to bring an agreement that does not go that far through that process that's outlined in the revised code?
As a rule of thumb, we favor negotiated agreements. It represents the consent of both parties to the terms that we've agreed to. The downside to a third-party dispute resolution process is that it takes the power out of our hands. A third party will then write our agreement. Besides the cost, the length of time, it gives up control to a third party. So that is why we also, fact finders and conciliators alike, tend to be more conservative and favor status quo. So if you're looking for change, either economically or with language changes, it's not a favorable route.
Meaning, in other words, so whether it's a policy matter, working conditions, wages and benefits, the city could potentially be in the position where we would get a worse deal than what would be on the table here tonight. Is that fair?
100% correct.
Moving into, these contracts are 3-year terms. So the last contract that came before council a number of years ago really focused on a number of different items that related to accountability. Right, so the creation of the Civilian Review Board, a number of additional sort of accountability themes, I think, were in that contract that was before that body at this point. Is there a theme that you would want to point out when we talk about, again, policy items that were negotiated within this agreement that's before this body?
The main policy item is seniority. And back to 2020, we had focused on accountability and transparency, and we were able to achieve gains to pave the way for the Civilian Review Board, to create the Department of the Inspector General, additional changes to body-worn cameras in the look-back period, as well as the Retirement Incentive Program. This round, we focused on seniority, about placing people staffed with the division in the right places, authorizing the chief, empowering the chief to make selections in units for sergeants and officers that she did not have before this time.
And can you speak more towards, so I think it's sort of generally referred to as sort of the discretion, right? So I think as Chief Bryant has been with the division and certainly established new leadership positions, and certainly over the last several years tried to make significant changes to sort of the culture and organization structure of the division itself, when we talk about giving potentially her more discretion as far as when we talk about putting people into different kinds of roles. Could you speak more towards like why that may matter when we talk about the types of roles you're trying to maybe get officers into that maybe wouldn't have the seniority to be able to have that available for them?
Absolutely. As we have ramped up hiring the last couple of years, especially to backfill spots from the retirement incentive program, it is incumbent on us to not just hire those people, but put them in roles that match their experience. The seniority system is a stalwart of unions, and it is one that we thread the needle on this contract. We did not disturb it for patrol, but we looked at those units, specialty units, that we believe have an impact when we bring in lateral transfers, when we have new officers that have a certain skill set that the chief could then place in those roles where otherwise they'd have to sit for 10, 15 years before they can move out of patrol or gain that type of assignment.
So in other words, if folks have a specific set of skills that it would make them more adept towards one of these specialized roles, this would potentially allow those folks to get into those roles on a quicker basis than just the standard seniority, again, for the specific types of assignments that it would allow under this contract. Is that fair?
That's correct.
And I think you mentioned a moment ago, so one of the key features of the prior collective bargaining agreement that was before this body that was approved was that voluntary retirement incentive. So the city provided a number of officers the ability to retire early with a financial incentive. It's no secret that in Columbus, our expectations of the Division of Police have changed over the past 3 to 5 years significantly. That's, we believe, has brought a significant improvement. Not that there's nothing that we can't continue to do to make both safety in Columbus a priority and certainly ensure that the division is being as responsive to the needs of the public and as appropriate as possible. But one of the keys when we talked about that shift in culture and certainly the shift in way that we're approaching public safety in Columbus was to make sure that officers want to be part of that change. So when we talk about those voluntary retirements and the prior agreement that allowed folks that maybe were not up for that change to again retire with that incentive. So when we talk about that backfilling, so the number of hiring that has happened over the past several years to again backfill those officers that have left the division, this would allow, again, if you're recruiting new folks that know exactly what they've signed up for, that the expectation is the transparency and accountability that folks at this council and across the city have asked for, that would allow those folks that have, again, asked to be in this job, the ability to put them in new roles that, again, may fit their skills on a quicker basis. Is that fair?
That's correct.
One last question before I turn it over to my colleagues. So this legislation has been requested for emergency consideration. Can you speak to why the department has brought this as emergency?
Yes, we bring this emergency as terms are retroactive to December 9th. We honor the agreement even after it's expired, and when we enter into agreement, it is retroactive to December 9th, 2023. We ask for emergency so we can make those payments to the officers to make them whole for the contract that they're serving under now.
Thank you. I want to turn the mic over to our Public Safety Chair, Councilmember Remy, for any questions he may have.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just wanted to, again, I thank the administration for the negotiations that went on to get this contract across the line, and certainly the FOP for overwhelming ratification of the contract. And so that tells us we're moving in the right direction. We accomplished some key objectives in this one, seniority being one of them, but certainly overall the partnership seems to be strengthening, and for that, very thankful, especially for some of us that have been sitting on this dais for many, many years and saw a different relationship. Could you talk a little bit, I know there's some there was some important work done around field training, and just talk a little bit about that, because, you know, again, as officers leave the academy and they get out onto the street, it was very important, I know, one of the chief's objective, to make sure that that training continues out. And so could you just talk a little bit about that portion of the contract, please?
Absolutely. It was a focus of the division's priority this time. This round of bargaining. Field training officers in general are officers that train newer officers in multiple phases. When they're sworn in as officers, other officers will take that role to kind of catch them up to speed on a peer-to-peer basis. What we did here was incentivize officers to sign up for the program. With the new and increased hiring, we need more field training officers to make sure that the next generation of police officers is adequately trained. For us, we made what was an informal agreement, a formal agreement with a cash incentive to coach phases. And I can go through that if you prefer.
Well, I think, I don't know that you need to go through all the specifics in this setting, but certainly, you know, I think it just illustrates the importance that this administration is placing on that ongoing training, something that we've asked for, and certainly are excited to see that in the contract. Yes. The other piece of it is wanted to talk a little bit about, hold on, I'm losing my mind tonight. Well, I just had it in my mind, too. I'm going to pass for a second. I'll come back.
Thank you, Councilmember. I want to see if there's any other questions from council members. Councilmember Barosa de Padilla.
So, Director, when we talk about the increase, can you just break that down again? This is a multi-part question. So, first of all, what is the overall increase? Why did we decide to increase it? And then also, I know added to the increase, there's not just a 5% increase for officers, but there's also a shift differential that also is included. And then can you talk a little bit about the comparison of the increase now to the increase in the past contract, please? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The overall wage package is for $80.4 million, and that represents a 5, 5, and 5. So 5% increase in year 1, 5% in year 2, and 5% in year 3. The other financial component of this agreement is a 10-cent addition to their shift differential. What was $1.25, we've agreed to increase it to $1.35. That we found was in line with other comparable jurisdictions, and the total cost represents the complete package of that.
One just quick follow-up, I'm sorry, I think I might have stopped you before you were going to answer the whole question, but can you talk about why we're making this increase now, but we have not had an increase, is that correct? Or what has, I'm sorry, the percentage of the increase? Yeah, can you talk about that in comparison to, and that's over the course of 3 years. When we talk about 5%, 5%, 5%, we're talking about a 5% increase over the next 3 years.
That's correct.
Each
so
year.
A total of 15% for the contract. This is relatively comparable to the last contract. What we did last contract different from this time was that we put money on the base. We had market adjustments in addition to across-the-board increases. The total cost of the last contract was $75.8 million. In today's dollars, that would be $87 million. So the total cost, the 5, 5, and 5, with the 10 cents on the shift differential, again, is 80.4. We're right in the neighborhood, if not cheaper, relatively speaking, than last contract.
Councilmember, any follow-ups?
Maybe.
Chair Remy.
All right, sorry about that senior moment. I was going to say that we memorialized the lateral transfer in this contract, and just as we look to, seek people to come to Columbus and to fill the ranks, that we need so desperately, just speak a little bit to that and how the importance of it.
Thank you. In 2022, midterm of the last contract, the city and the FOP reached an agreement to add a lateral entry officer process, where with officers from other jurisdictions, with 5 years or more of experience could come into the city, land at a step that midway through the officer pay range instead of starting over. Under the prior rules, that officer would have to go through the complete training and then start at step A like any new recruit. We did not have a mechanism to attract other talent from other jurisdictions. We found that important. In conjunction with the increase of hiring, the lateral entry officer program increases diversity, not just with age and race and sex, but also with experience.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Director.
Thank you, Councilmember Ray. Councilmember Favor.
I think acknowledging that no negotiation is ever perfect, that there are concessions that have to be made on both sides. I'm incredibly excited by the reality that Chief Bryant will have the opportunity, having the right person and the right job is always incredibly important. And not to disregard seniority by any stretch. I just think it's incredibly important for us not to gloss over how incredibly successful I think this contract process was, and being able to achieve that win to make sure that we've got the right officers assigned to the right unit to better serve the residents in Columbus. Can you just talk a little bit about, and I'm not sure if you can go into some of the details of what those assignments look like, but is there something that you can share with residents that's a little bit more specific as to what that might look like?
Absolutely. So in the changes that I'm discussing, Chief Bryant now has the authority to select for officer units, there are 14 officer units affected by this contract, where she can make a pick in 1 in every 4 selections. Her pick, 3 by seniority, then her pick. Never had that discretion or right before. With sergeants, assuming they're eligible, have 1 year of experience in that unit, there are 6 units where she can select the sergeant on a 1 pick for every 4 pick. With the mobile crisis response unit, we've added her right to disapprove assignments. And with the public information sergeant, she now is able to choose her own spokesperson to speak for her. She has complete discretion. And each part of the contract, not to bore you with the details, there are rights to disapprove, there are complete discretion rights, and there's this limited discretion that we've kind of added to the contract. So that to us, is major change, again, while preserving the general seniority system.
Absolutely. And I don't think it can be underscored enough. We obviously had some challenges, this during today's meeting, which would question why we would move forward with this process. But understanding that we are operating under state law, and I want to applaud my colleague for leading us on this effort, Councilmember Dorrance, and working through the legal mechanics of what this does look like for us as a legislative body, and the need to move forward at this point in time. Because the reality is that should we move on to the fact-finding process, that more than likely in those instances, the status quo is what is upheld. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the administration, along with this body, has been committed to changing the culture in the Division of Police. And we are very excited, and I appreciate your comments about the value of the deal, the value of coming together, not just this contract, but last contract, where the track record between the city and FOP has been checkered. And so I'm incredibly proud of our team. I'm incredibly proud of the FOP's team, their leadership, and our leadership here.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Dorrance.
Thank you, Councilmember Favor. Other questions or comments?
Chair, this is just a process question. It's on, this piece of legislation is on tonight's agenda as emergency. Would the director speak to why we're requesting to pass this by emergency?
We are requesting to pass it by emergency because the terms are retroactive. So pay is due currently to officers for work dating back to December 9th, 2023.
Thank you, Council President. Any other questions or comments from council members? So, Director, just to completely clarify, what happens if council votes to approve this contract here tonight?
To approve it?
Yes.
It becomes our contract. The next step is that we put it into final form and we live under it. We then go under the process of making sure officers get paid what they were due under the terms of this agreement, dating back to December 9th. There'll be a little bit of time to do that, but again, this is why we've requested emergency.
What would happen if council rejected this legislation this evening?
So in essence, we lose all of these changes. We kind of start over. We would then go to fact-finding, and this process is not fail-proof. In fact, it's more likely that we're never going to get this type of change again. It's probably safe to say that the FOP wouldn't get their increases as well, but we look at this deal as maximizing the win-win possibility. Going to fact-finding means we have to advocate for why we just rejected our own tentative agreement, why the deal we made was the wrong deal, and therefore we should reject it and offer new terms. It is a difficult position to take, and fact finders tend to be more conservative and favor status quo. The likelihood of getting, again, major economic or non-economic changes are very unlikely. And again, it is not a satisfactory process for either side.
Thank you, Director. And I appreciate sort of the both granular detail that you've provided here tonight, but also sort of the big picture as it relates to how the Ohio Revised Code governs this process and eventually brings a piece of legislation to council. This is a piece of legislation that is often brought up by members of the community. So when we've talked about the reforms and accountability that was in the prior deal back 3+ years ago at this point, and then building upon that collective bargaining agreement, maintaining those things that were negotiated 3+ years ago, while also adding new policy items here that we believe will give our chief the additional discretion and also the type of ability to continue her work to make this department meet the needs of Columbus. This is, as I think Councilmember Favors mentioned, there's no perfect in any negotiation. We don't get everything that we want. No labor organization gets everything that they want. Typically, we fall somewhere in between. And I think that this contract merits this council's serious consideration. And with that, I would move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have in my committees at this time. Would you like to recess for zoning?
Yes, is there a motion?
So move. Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
In recess. To convene, is there a motion to Sorry, so sorry. I moved, I apologize. Regular meeting number 24 will now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Here none, the journal is approved. We'll now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Dorans chairs that. All members serve on it. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Before we begin tonight's zoning agenda, allow me to briefly explain our current rules pertaining to speaking before council on rezonings and variances. We only hear a staff presentation for ordinances that have a disapproval from a recommending body, or if you have a public speaker signed up to speak against an ordinance. Only those who own property within 125 feet of an address that is the subject of a variance request are legally able to make public comments on council variance per guidance from the city attorney's office. All speakers on council variances, including city staff, area commissioners, applicants, and members of the public, will be sworn in before they give testimony. Representatives of an area commission and applicants are always able to speak on an ordinance and do not need to fill out a speaker slip. This evening, we do not have any public speakers on any of our legislation. On the advice of the city attorney's office, I will now swear in city staff. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, that you shall answer and pains the penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. I do. Thank you, sir. Please let the record reflect that Brandon Carpenter from the Department of Building and Zoning Services has been sworn in. First, we have ordinance number 1112-2024 to rezone 2050 East Dublin Granville Road, being 1.09 plus acres located in the north side of East Dublin Granville Road, from CPD Commercial Plan Development District to LC4 Limited Commercial District. The site consists of a part of a parcel developed with a car wash facility, and a proposed rezoning will allow limited commercial uses, including automotive window tinting. A concurrent council variance will be considered next on our agenda tonight, and that has been filed to allow the interior storage of motor vehicles as well. The proposal has approval from city staff, the Development Commission, and the North Lane Community Council. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I first move to amend as emergency.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amended.
Thank you. I next move for passage as amended.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amended.
Thank you. Next, we move to the council variances. We have ordinance 1113-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3356.03 C4 permitted use of the Columbus City Codes to property located at 2050 East Dublin Granville Road to allow indoor automotive storage in the LC4 Limited Commercial District. As I mentioned earlier, this is the concurrent variance to the previous ordinance we just considered, which will allow the applicant to store automobiles with a building A, B, and C on the property. Staff supports the use as storage will take place within the building on site that acts as a screening from adjacent properties. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, the proposal also has approval from city staff and the Northland Community Council. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Accept it.
Next, move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopt it.
I next move to amend to emergency.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amended.
Thank you. And finally, I move for passage as amended.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And finally, we have ordinance 1133-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3363.01 and manufacturing district 3312.09, IL 3312.13B driveway, 3312.25 maneuvering, 3312.49 required parking, and 3372.604A setback requirements of the Columbus City Code for the property located at 1070 South Front Street to allow a multi-unit residential development, reduce development standards in the M manufacturing district, and repeal ordinance number 0853-2006 passed on June 19, 2006, and an ordinance number 1656-2005 passed October 24, 2005. The site consists of one parcel developed with 4-unit dwelling and 2 detached garages that is subject to ordinance number 0853-2006, which proposed an additional 3-unit dwelling on the property. The requested variance replaces the intended 3-unit dwelling with a 4-unit dwelling for a total of 8 total units on the site. A council variance is necessary to allow the multi-unit residential development in the current zoning district. Also of note, this site is within the initial focus of the zoning initiative, and the contemplated mixed-use zoning designations will allow for ground floor residential uses. The proposal has support from city staff, the Historic Resources Commission, who now oversees proposals within the Brewery District. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I first move to waive second reading.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Waived.
Thank you. Next, I move to accept the staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Accept it.
Thank you. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopt it.
And finally, move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That's all we have in our zoning committee this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Meeting is adjourned. Meeting number 23. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
The next committee to come before council is the Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, chaired by Councilmember Favor. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President Harden. Tonight in the Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, we have Ordinance 1042-2024. This legislation authorizes the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a professional services contract with Warhol and Wall Street to educate Columbus residents and stakeholders on the City of Columbus zoning code changes by creatively supporting the zoning gallery. Earlier this month, the City of Columbus introduced a proposal to modernize the zoning of Columbus corridors. This will be the city's first comprehensive effort to update its zoning code in more than 70 years. To educate and engage Columbus residents and stakeholders on the code changes, the city is sponsoring the creation of a zone-in gallery, an interactive space where residents can learn the rationale for the changes, the process that was taken to create the proposal, and how these updates will affect the community. Warhol and Wall Street began the creative development on the zone-in gallery project as a subcontractor to the Lisa Wise consulting contract, originally authorized by Ordinance 1041-2022. The purpose of this independent contract is to provide sufficient funds to execute the gallery and allow the purchase of food and beverages in an amount not to exceed $5,000 to be served to gallery attendees. And I will also elevate that or amplify that tomorrow, my colleagues, Council President Hardin, Councilmember Weish, and Councilmember Bankston will be hosting a zone-in event for residents in the city of Columbus. I believe starts at 5:30? 5? Okay, I guess I'm in charge. That starts at around 5 or 5:30, but there's information that can be found on all of our social media platforms that will provide some additional information. Councilmember Dorans, sorry to put you on the spot. Is there anything else you would acknowledge about the zone-in gallery? With that, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And Council President, if you would allow me just a point of privilege, as there are some situations that are unfolding in the city of Columbus as it relates to our housing, and more specifically to the eviction crisis that has been bubbling up recently. An article from Bill Bush notes an evolving housing issue at Sandridge Apartment Complex in Northeast Columbus. Over 100 tenants have been notified by new property management, Carlton Equities LLC of Lakewood, New Jersey, to leave the property or to face eviction. There have been several outreaches, efforts by members of residents of this complex, many who received notices in early April that they had 60 days to pack up and move, but that has since been extended by 30 or more days. They are being asked to move out now by July 7th. Obviously, residents are concerned and worried about where to go given the tight housing market, and many have lived in their unit for more than a decade, paying a specific rent that was set years ago. I would like to turn the podium over to Director Stevens, as this legislative body has been laser focused on not only working in partnership with the administration as we work to address our housing crisis by way of building more in our community, also working to preserve what has already been designated as affordable in our community, and then advancing tenant protections. But we also know that we are dealing with a supply and demand issue in our community. And unfortunately, what is occurring at Sandridge, is happening with another complex in our community. So I want to provide the department with an opportunity to respond.
Thank you, President Hardin, Chair Faber, members of council. It's a shame anytime one of our residents have to enter a phase of housing instability. That's why we've worked together to invest in the Central Ohio Stable Housing Network with partners like the Community Shelter Board, Life Care Alliance, CEO, AAA, and others to assist residents of both Sandridge and currently Riverview community is going through a vacant that's happening as we speak. People are are exiting their homes as we speak now. So the Central Ohio Stable Housing Network was out there today with that community. We are going to be out with the Sandridge community. What we've also done working together, and council has approved funding for housing resource specialists in all of our 28 emergency rental assistance organizations. So we use some of the federal ERA dollars to invest in those individuals to help folks as they get impacted by this housing crisis we face. And Chair Faber, you're right, it is a supply and demand issue. And it's important that, this council and the city has led the way on making sure that we're taking our affordable housing bond dollars that our neighbors have approved in 2019 and then 2 years ago, and investing that in projects to build more housing that's affordable for all our residents, and housing all over this community. So these are unfortunate situations. We continue to work with our partners to make sure we're getting the services needed out to these communities to help folks find new housing and relocate. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director Stevens. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments about what is occurring at Riverside and Sandridge, correct? With that, yes.
I do have a quick
Councilmember.
question. So, Director Stevens, Riverview in particular is the home to many immigrants. Are we providing, or are there other services that are currently, I know that Riverview International Center is located there. That is a nonprofit that has been working with those families, but are there other services that we're currently providing to them, or other places, if folks are watching, that we can direct those residents to?
Yeah, so the Central Ohio Stable Housing Network has been out there, and that's our partner. So I failed to mention Legal Aid, and they've been an important partner through this work as well. They've been out on a daily basis and working with those individuals. So it's a great network of housing providers or housing assistant providers that continue to try to address the needs. Unfortunately, there are something, the other area that we're trying to figure out is how do we provide the rental assistance as those dollars are being utilized, as well as work with CMHA to get housing vouchers to help folks who already have vouchers and get placed in other properties.
Thank you, Council Member. With that, we're going to go just a half step out of order here and invite two residents who are impacted by what is occurring right now at Sandridge. I would like to invite Mr. James Drinks to the podium to provide some brief remarks. And Mr. Drinks, if you could just state your name and any organization that you might meet, you're welcome to come on up, sir. And you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council members, President Harden, Councilmember Faber, rest of the members. We appreciate this opportunity to stand before you and to tell you about, from my voice, what's going on at our apartment complex. As it's already been stated, we were given on April 1st a letter saying who the new management company was. 4 days later, we got a 60-day notice to vacate the property. Upon that, it put a sense of fear into all the residents, and they started running like ants because they don't, a lot of them, they say they don't want to have an eviction on their record. Although we were already given a 60-day notice, I asked them to give us an additional 30. They gave us that. Nevertheless, 90 days is not enough for somebody to move that's been where they are for 10 years or more. I mean, you go somewhere for a week, it's hard for you to get out of that, you know. So we're stuck with being told that we have to get out of where we are in 60 days, 90 days, only because we begged them for another 30. They don't want to negotiate. They don't want to talk to us. They've neglected the property, although the property owners or management company is as far away as that wall. The lawns are perfectly manicured. Looks like a golf course. Where we live at, looks the exact opposite. And we think that's by choice, and they're doing it intentionally to discourage the tenants there so that they'll move out much faster, and they can turn where we're at into part of the eastern corridor, which Easton is, we can see the lights from where we live. So we know what the plan is. We know that it's part of progress. We understand and appreciate that. But what we don't appreciate is us being displaced the way we are, and management, ownership, nobody shows any humanity about it, you know. We've reached out to most of you members. You know me, you're probably tired of me. That's good, you know, but we're going to keep our foot on the gas because this is a situation that it's urgent. You know, we don't want to join the list of the homeless. You know, I've worked in this country all my life. I've worked 45 years as a carpenter. I helped build the World Trade Center, worked on the New York, Brooklyn Bridge, Statue of Liberty refurbishment, Wexner's House here in New Albany. You know, I've helped to build this country. We as a group of people have worked to build this country. For people who are now taking advantage of the opportunities that we've created for them, the group that was here this evening. You know, I support what they feel, because what's happening to them is what's happened to us. And part of it is also part of what's happening to us in Sandridge personally. We're being displaced. Those people in Gaza are being displaced also. We share their understanding. We share their concern. We want somebody to share our concern. We want some help. That's all. And if you guys can help us with the programs that you've got, the monies that we're giving away, the taxes that we've paid, we voted for you folks. We voted you in office because we knew that you would help us. Don't disappoint us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Drinks.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Drinks.
you very much.
Absolutely. Director Stevens, anything you'd like to offer there? I would just say from Council President Harden and I and his team, we did meet with residents before City Council today. And so we have already made contact with legal aid. We're also reaching out to CMHA. Once again, strengthening up what is going to be the role of COAAA. I'd love to see some case management and assisting every single resident, acknowledging that majority of those residents in the complex are members of our seasoned community, respectfully, but others who are disabled and have undergone procedures, and that is very challenging housing to obtain in our community. And so with all of those sensitivities in mind, this is definitely top priority for us. But ma'am, I'll turn it over to you.
Councilman Harden and the rest of the council people, I would like to I am in support of the Sandridge community. Columbus used to be a place where had a reputation where you could raise your family. And now if you went all over the country, everybody would say Columbus was a good place to raise your family. But what we're seeing now is people coming in, putting our families, displacing our seniors. And we're better than that. We're better than that. Now, we voted for you to represent us, the people. We believed in you. And this is happening systemically all over our city. People are coming in, they're raising the rent 2 to 3 times to what people can afford. I don't know what the rates are going to be next year. You know, it went from $500 to $1,200 to $1,900, and there has to be a halt to this. We're getting a reputation of having more people evicted. That's not what we want to represent in our city. So I'm asking all of you to do whatever you can to stop this madness. Because if we're not, we're going to be looking like a San Francisco, and we don't want to do that. We're Columbus, Ohio. We're better than that. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. Thank you so much, Ms. Robinson, for your advocacy. My colleagues have any questions or comments at this time?
I just want to thank you. First, we appreciate you, Mr. Drinks, for your advocacy, because you're not just speaking for yourself. This is not one isolated incident that we're talking about. This is happening to an entire apartment complex, but even more so, it's happening to an entire community. And your advocacy is breaking through. And I think it's raising the stakes, raising the concern around what is happening in our community. And that brings me to Chair Faber. This is exactly what we have been fighting against, and we will continue to fight against. We keep talking about growth in our community, and we used to talk about it in a fun way. Growth would be cool, but if you don't plan for growth, if you don't put in protections for folks who have been here, and if you don't build more housing, this is what you get. And so I just applaud Councilmember Faber for the hard work that she has done. We are not giving up. We will continue to fight. The truth is, we are up against a state house sometimes who prohibits us from going further as it pertains to renters and renters' protections. But this council has been and will continue to fight for our residents. We will continue to do so. In this specific case, I look forward to supporting Councilmember Faber. Before council started, she was upstairs making phone calls as the meeting was started. So I know that there is work actually going on right now in this case. So thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you to the residents for being here this evening and sticking it out through a long meeting. Thank you, Council President Ard. That's all for the Housing Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Health and Human Services Committee, chaired by Councilmember Green.
Thank you, President Harden. Tonight in Health, Human Services, and Equity, we have two ordinances on second reading. The first one is Ordinance 0649-2024 to authorize the Board of Health to enter into a sole source contract with Calm.com, Inc. for mental health and well-being services, to authorize an expenditure from the Health Department's grant fund to pay for the cost thereof and to declare an emergency. This funding will allow CPH to provide mental health and well-being services to their staff and to their families through Calm.com. Employees can enjoy the freedom of accessing mental health services directly from their phone or computer or at home. This program shows CPH's commitment to innovation in the mental health space and to promoting well-being of their employees. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White. President Harden.
Passed.
And our second ordinance tonight is Ordinance 1057-2024 to authorize the city clerk to enter into a grant agreement with the BESA Community, Inc. in support of their capacity building and to authorize an appropriation and expenditure within the Neighborhoods Initiative Subfund. Under the leadership of Matthew Goldstein, founder and CEO, BESA has been instrumental in mobilizing a large volunteer force to support our nonprofit sector's critical workforce shortages. These volunteer efforts are only the beginning of investing more into our human infrastructure. This funding will directly build the capacity of Central Ohio's nonprofits at a critical time. BESA's mission is building community through volunteerism, which speaks to a vision of mine, where every community member is informed, engaged, and active. BESA continues to do work in the areas of hunger, housing, senior welfare, health, and well-being, and workforce development. I also just want to stop here and say that funding volunteer work is very important, but funding the professionals that are in those jobs that have have spent the time to rack up the student loans and get the educations and the education of just doing the community work in and of itself is equally important, and it has to be front and center of our mind. I was thinking about this today when Director Moses was talking about how the cost of the FOP contract was, $75 million, and in today's dollars, that would be $87 million. So just the inflation over the last 3 years and what it looks like in actual dollars to continue to fund a workforce, any workforce, and how our investments in our human infrastructure, in our human services, emergency responses are just as critical and important, and we have to make sure that we are continuing to scale our investments with that equitably. And so BESA has filled an absolutely critical role. and a gap that needs, because people in our community need help. And we haven't invested, not we, just Columbus, but everywhere. We've not done a good job of making the investments so we can incentivize people into this workforce to do this important work. So today we will continue to fund this incredible organization that does so much good across our community. And I look forward to partnering with them and partnering with everyone else to continue to figure out how we can go further. With that, do any of my colleagues have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, President Harden. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, chaired by Councilmember Remy. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Council President Harden. Tonight I have two ordinances in public safety and criminal justice. The first is 567-2024 to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget to authorize the transfer of funds and appropriation within the Safety GO Bonds Fund, to authorize the Director of Department of Public Safety to enter into contract with KNS Services, Inc. and MCIS, Inc. for the Neighborhood Safety Cameras Project, to waive the competitive bidding requirements of the Columbus City Code, and to authorize the expenditure of $200,000 from the Safety GO Bonds Fund for this project. The Neighborhood Safety Cameras Project has been a successful policing strategy for the City of Columbus. The Division of Police uses these cameras as a tool to increase their ability to monitor criminal behavior and provide safety in our neighborhoods. Neighborhood selection is driven by crime data input from police officers, infrastructure, potential impact on criminal activity, and most importantly, neighborhood support. During the most recent 12-month reporting period, there were 923 calls for service to the South Park apartments, including 26 felony offenses of violence and 3 drug overdoses. The City of Columbus brought a nuisance abatement lawsuit against South Park in 2022. As a part of the agreed order that resulted from the lawsuit, the owners of the complex have made a significant investment in the safety infrastructure on their property. Installing safety cameras in the right-of-way abutting South Park will significantly enhance that investment and increase the safety and quality of life of residents. Director, can you speak to the waiver of competitive bidding, please?
Council Chair Remy, council members, KNS Services, Inc. and MCIS are the current vendors for the neighborhood safety cameras and have the specialized knowledge and experience needed to install and connect these cameras without a lag in service. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance 1065-2024 to authorize the Director of Public Safety to enter into contract on behalf of the Division of Police with Gannett Media Corp. for advertising services for a marketing campaign to recruit candidates for the sworn position of police officer, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $89,760 within the general fund, and to declare an emergency. The Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, is in need of advertising services to recruit and reach individuals who want to start a career in public safety as a police officer. The Division of Police requests to enter into a service contract with Gannett Media Corp. for the aforementioned purposes. Gannett Media Corp. is the Employment Marketing Solutions Division of the USA Today Network. Gannett Media offers an unmatched reach and unparalleled access to both passive and active job seekers through print and digital media solutions, branded content, career events, and experiential marketing to help engage the candidates in a meaningful ways. Gannett Media is a proven, trusted media partner with the expertise, resources, and reach to effectively deliver the division's brand message to potential candidates. Director, could you also speak to the waiver of competitive bidding on this particular
Council Chair
ordinance?
Remy, Council President, council members, we're asking for a waiver, a bid waiver. In this case, the division has had great success with their marketing campaign with Gannett Media, with over 953 leads in the past 4 months. Furthermore, the division will be entering into 6 other advertising contracts with various vendors to reach as many populations as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Are there any other questions for my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you very much. That is all I have in criminal justice and public safety this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to acknowledge that last night we lost one of our officers, Mr. Officer Johnson, and we're just keeping his family in our prayers. So please keep our officers in your prayer. The next committee to come before council is Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, chaired by Councilmember Weish. Councilmember, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. Tonight I have 6 ordinances in public utilities and sustainability. We'll be quick. I have Ordinance 815-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with the Ryder Co. Inc. for the Dodge Park Pump Station Radio System Upgrade Project, to authorize an amendment to the 2023 capital improvement budget, to authorize the transfer of cash and appropriation within the sanitary bond fund, and to authorize the expenditure of $1,201,364 for the project. The system of radio equipment informs maintenance staff of any problems at remote sanitary and stormwater facilities, which would cause water and basement events or overflows to area streams and rivers. The existing radio hardware has become obsolete, and replacement parts are no longer available. This contract replaces equipment in kind. Stop there, see if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, I have Ordinance 861-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with the Ryder Co. Inc. for the Stelzer Road Pressure Reducing Valve, to authorize an amendment to the 2023 capital improvement budget, to authorize the appropriation and transfer of funds from the Water System Reserve Fund to the Fresh Water Market Rate Program Fund, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of $2,158,963.54 from the Fresh Water Market Rate Program Fund for the contract, and to authorize an expenditure of $2,000 from the Water Bond Fund to pay for the prevailing wage services for the project. The addition of this pressure-reducing valve will allow the Division of Water to supply an additional average flow of 5 million gallons a day to the district, which will provide sufficient water to buffer the projected increased demand until the fourth water plant is constructed and commissioned. Let me pause there and see if there are any questions from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Akauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. The next 2 ordinances I have will work together, so I'll read both the titles and then speak to them. First, we have Ordinance 0664-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to enter into a professional services contract with Murphy Epson, Inc. for the Lead Service Line Public Information Outreach Project, to authorize an amendment to the 2023 capital improvement budget, to authorize the transfer of cash and appropriation between projects within the Water Bond Fund, to authorize an expenditure of up to $546,975.55 from the Water Bond Fund, and to declare an emergency. Next, we have 1061-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to implement and execute a limited lead service line replacement pilot program for water replacements to, service lines, to authorize the Department of Public Utilities to perform lead water service line replacements on private property with permission of the private property owner, and to declare an emergency. While the city excluded lead as an approved material for service lines in 1963, lead service lines currently exist in both the public and private side of the city service lines. The Division of Water plans to perform a limited pilot program to remove lead lines on private property in partnership with the city's Department of Development. The Department of Development is in the process of identifying private property owners that want to have their lead lines replaced and are willing to have the city do the work. It is in the best interest of the city and its residents to replace all lead service lines in the city's service area, whether publicly or privately owned, to protect public health and to avoid noncompliance with federal and state law. I commend the Department of Public Utilities for taking the initiative to implement a lead service line replacement pilot program to learn best practices for implementing an ongoing program concerning lead service lines. Also commend the department for understanding how vitally important it is for information about this program to be disseminated through every channel possible, and having the foresight to get ahead of creating a lead service line public information outreach project. I hear all the time from constituents that they don't know about a community event or program after it has been marketed for weeks at a time. With so many ways to receive information, the city knows it's imperative to use all tools available, especially when it comes to programs that can improve public health, like removing lead service lines. Let me stop there, see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Councilmember Green?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember White. I just want to commend you and the department for this important work. We know the intersections of health-related challenges, particularly among our youth, and brain development issues and central nervous system issues that can arise from exposure to lead, and then the long-term consequences that result from those. So great work on this initiative. Thank you, Councilmember, or Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. Any other comments or questions from my colleagues? All right, we will start with Ordinance 0664-2024. I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, we have Ordinance 1061-2024. I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, I have 1092-2024 to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into a contract for the option to purchase water meters, yokes, meter setters, and appurtenances with Badger Meter, Inc., to authorize the expenditure of $1 to waive the provisions of competitive bidding and to declare an emergency. Division of Water implemented an enhanced meter project where 80,000 meters are to be installed annually. A water meters, yokes, meter setters, and I can't say this word to save my life. Contract previously existed with Badger Meter, Inc. and expired on March 31st, 2024. A waiver of competitive bidding is requested because Badger Meter, Inc. is the only vendor who provides the PD meter. The new contract needs to get established to continue deployment of meters for the enhanced meter project. Let me pause there to see if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Lastly, I have Ordinance 1093-2024 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a contract with Dr. Flood LLC for the payment of emergency water remediation services for the Division of Sewerage and Drainage, to authorize the waiver of competitive bidding requirements of Chapter 329 of the Columbus City Codes, to authorize the expenditure of $72,735 from the Sanitary Sewer Operating Fund and to declare an emergency. On January 15th through the 16th, 2024, 5 heating coils burst, causing substantial water damage in several areas at the Sewer Maintenance Operations Center. Since it was critical for the Sewer Maintenance Operations Center staff to act immediately to remedy the damage and to prevent the growth of mold and mildew for the health and safety of the employees, the work has already been done and the bill simply needs to be paid. Let me pause there and kick it to the Director for any comments related to this ordinance.
Council President Harden, Councilmember Weish, and members of council, thank you for the opportunity to comment on this piece of legislation. As the council member stated, we did have a flood in the building, and this is an urgent need to, there was an urgent need to do the remediation. We worked with a subcontractor of Service Master, who we have a contract with. Initially, the quote was under $50,000, so we authorized them to proceed with the remediation. They exceeded that when they got into the work. So we're just coming before the body to have this approved because it exceeded the $50,000.
Thank you, Director.
Thank
Let me
you.
pause there to see if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all I have from my committee tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seeing no further business come before council, is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
The meeting is adjourned. We have one non-agenda speaker.